Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I am Abby Small, and today we have another deck discussion. We have Nick Fury in protection with a deck called Tinker with Tech Soldier Spy. Has 41 cards in it, and it is meant to be a solo deck, and it does have, the theme is very much applied here, and you can see that with the name of it. So Tinker with Tech Soldier Spy is meant to be suggestive of the movie and book called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And I'm just going to read this. It evokes the careful planning and hidden operations central to this deck's strategy. Expect a mix of tech upgrades, tactical plays, and calculated strikes, just like a well-executed espionage mission. This deck is all about building your advantage before going in for the decisive blow by repurposing tech upgrades. So you will see that Repurpose is in here, and a number of tech upgrades that were added to the deck, as well as some tech upgrades that are included in the deck. But first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the villains this was tested against. So my goal initially was to play this deck, and actually the original deck. So I will talk about how this deck was refined over time. So I was going to play it against the new campaign, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And when I did so, I realized that I was feeling pretty overwhelmed because Nick Fury's deck, I had to do so much thinking because it worked very differently than what I'm used to, even having played 50-something different heroes. And trying to do that and also learn a new villain like Black Widow, it was just overwhelming for me. So I decided instead that I was going to play against some of my usual villains that I play against, refine the deck, get comfortable with the deck, and then take it back to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. campaign. So I ended up playing against Claw, ZOLA. ZOLA is not one of my usual ones. I like rotating a new one in here and there periodically. And so over time, the set of villains I played changes. And ZOLA was, I have to admit, more difficult than I remembered. I hadn't played ZOLA in, I don't know how long, but it had been a long time. And then I played Red Skull and Magneto, and then finally came back to Black Widow. So not the easiest villains for sure. And Claw is my typical test villain. And I played in both Standard and Expert and was undefeated in this case against every one of these villains in Standard and Expert. And I can't remember if I said it, but I came back to Black Widow afterwards, playing the first game of the campaign. I did play Black Widow once in Standard as my very first game. Also won that game. I'm not really counting that one, but I did win that game too. However, the interesting thing about this, this is quite a set of villains, I think, especially once you get to Magneto, to be undefeated against. But not a single one was an easy victory. Like, I felt like I was constantly figuring things out. What is the best play here? Starting to get to develop a little bit of a system for the way that I like to play Nick Fury. And so if you're looking for a deck and frankly a hero that challenges you and makes you think through the whole time, then this is a good one to check into. If that's not your type of hero, then Nick Fury probably isn't for you. So let's go ahead and, like I said, the battle results were, victories against all of them, and they all played out eventually in a similar way. And that is, they ended with a total damage in the final round of about 20 points, which included anywhere from 10 to 19 points of basic damage from Nick Fury, using the Repurpose, but also using his own, readying card, which is the support Fury's flying car. So let's take a look at that one real quickly. So it's a 2-cost support, has aerial tech and vehicle for its traits, and has this hero action: exhaust Fury's flying car, remove 1 threat from your suit form upgrade, ready Nick Fury. He gains the aerial trait until the end of the round. And the main thing we care about there is that he's getting to ready. And so why don't we go to Nick Fury himself right off the bat then. So we have Nick Fury in his hero form. He's a S.H.I.E.L.D. soldier and spy. And he has, in hero form, this ability, gather. Oh, I should probably mention he has 10 hit points, hand size of 5 on the hero side. hand size of 6 on the alter ego side. So he has this ability on the hero side, gather intel, which is this response. After Nick Fury makes a basic thwart, he can place one threat on his suit form upgrade. So we better introduce that in a little bit here. And if he attacks, whether that's his own basic attack or using one of his attack cards, attack events, then he changes to assault suit form. So why don't we go and find that suit? All right, and we can see it here, the assault side of it, and this has both sides in the description. So on the assault side, and on both sides, right, it's an upgrade, it's item and tech, and there are 2 suit forms. So, and both of them are permanent. So this is a permanent card. And on the assault side, when you attack, you can remove up to 3 threat from here. Then that attack deals 1 additional damage for each threat removed this way. And then on the stealth side, he has the forced interrupt. When an enemy would attack you, it schemes instead. And this is what, frankly, made the deck difficult to pilot in the beginning. I really felt like I needed to practice using Nick Fury, partly because I would forget to do this. I eventually had to have a system where I have this kind of special. I have these. I took a 5 cost thwart icon that I have. What do you call those things? A little chit, and I put that on the villain's deck so I would remember, at least when I was supposed to, whenever we were in stealth form, so that I would remember that the villain needed to thwart first. So it took me a while to get used to that aspect of it, right? So again, when an enemy, looking at the stealth side, you have this forced interrupt. When an enemy would attack you, it schemes instead. Place 1 threat from that activation here on the suit instead of on the main scheme if there is 5 or fewer threat on this card. So that also means we should take a look at Nick Fury's alter ego side, because we have to be able to change the card back and forth, this suit form. So when he's on alter ego side, he has this suit up, which is the setup where he puts his suit form upgrade into play with the assault side face up. And then he has the action on this side, infiltrate, where he can change this suit to stealth suit form. And then some of his cards also allow him. So because once he's on his hero side, once he attacks again with a basic attack or with one of his other attacks, which would be spray fire or concentrated fire, then it flips to the other side, the assault form side, and but he has the opportunity to change it back with some of these same events. So the particular concentrated fire allows if he defeats an enemy with this attack, right? It's a 2-cost event, deals 4 damage to an enemy. Of course, it can do more, right? Because of what the suit form it can have, can add to the damage up to 3. Okay? This attack gains range, and if this attack defeats an enemy, then you can either place threat on your suit form upgrade equal to that enemy's scheme, or you can change back to stealth suit form. So that gives you an opportunity to change back. And then the other events that give you a chance to change back are his thwart events. So he has 3 of these: covert, surveillance, and they remove 2 threat from a scheme. It's a hero action. If you're in stealth suit form, you can place that threat that you removed on your suit form upgrade. Otherwise, you may change to stealth suit form. So these 2, concentrated fire, the attack event, and covert surveillance, do give you the opportunity to change back to stealth suit form. Okay. Now, what I ended up doing most of the time, I found, is that I preferred to start the game in his stealth suit form with this upgrade in stealth suit form, and leave it there for as long as I could handle, and start to build out my kit with the supports, the upgrade, and 1 key ally, Maria Hill. So we'll come back to Maria Hill in a little bit. And then once I started getting built out in a decent way, I would change to stealth suit form from some kind of attack. And then once that occurred, I would stay in assault. Did I say change to assault suit form? I would change to assault suit form from some kind of attack, either an event or his basic attack, and I would stay in assault suit form for either the rest of the game or most of the rest of the game. And then once it came to that point, the idea was to defend with the many allies in the deck, or he could use some of these upgrades to defend for him too, right? So that would include his own EM shield, right? So this is a 2-cost preparation and tech. Has this interrupt: when you would take any amount of damage from an attack, discard EM shield and prevent all of that damage. So the nice thing about that one is that because it is, when you would attack, if you don't take any damage, you don't have to use this. So you can choose to just take a hit and then see if you took damage, see how much damage you take afterwards, and decide if you're going to prevent it. So that shield, of course, there are the 2 energy barriers in here as well. So those energy barriers, item and tech, they're 2-cost upgrades, and they have 3 uses on them. Has this interrupt: when you would take any amount of damage, remove 1 reflection counter from here, prevent 1 of that damage, and deal 1 damage to an enemy. So that could help to protect you. And then the force field generator is the other one that could protect a person. So that's a 3-cost upgrade. Has 6 energy counters on it. Has this forced interrupt: when you would take any amount of damage. Notice again, it's a forced interrupt, so you have to do this if you're going to take damage. When you would take any amount of damage, remove that many counters from here. For each energy counter removed this way, prevent 1 of that damage. So if you have this out, plus happen to have energy barrier or EM shield out, force field generator is the one that has to be used first because it is a forced interrupt, whereas EM shield is just an interrupt, and energy barrier also just an interrupt. So this one's the only forced interrupt. So just mentioning that up front. And then as long as we're mentioning the technology, right, because we might as well go to Repurpose. Right, so Repurpose is a 0-cost event, has this hero action: discard a tech upgrade you control, ready hero, and choose thwart, attack, or defense. Until the end of the round, your hero gets plus X to the chosen power, where X is equal to that upgrade's printed cost. So if it's energy barrier or EM shield, those all have cost of 2. So he would add +2 to his attack or thwart. And then the force field generator could add +3 instead. He also had his eye patch camera, but that's something you want to leave in play at the entire game, or at least until the final turn when you're planning on defeating the villain. So let's go ahead and go through this one. It is a preparation and tech. Has a hero interrupt: when any amount of threat would be placed on the main scene. Oh, I'm sorry. This isn't the one I was thinking of. This one you don't want to keep out the whole game. You want to use it, when you can. When any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, discard eye patch camera. Place up to 3 of that threat on your suit form upgrade. So that's a preparation and a tech, just like EM shield is preparation and a tech. Okay? And then same with energy barrier. This is just a tech, not a preparation. Force field generator, just a tech, not a preparation. Okay? So those are all cards that one might use, possibly with Repurpose. And then we do have a couple of tech upgrades that could be used with Repurpose, but we would choose not to do so until finishing out the game for the final, going for victory. And that would be there's Fury's Watch. Right, so that's an item in tech. Exhaust Fury's Watch, and it's a 1-cost. Remove up to 2 threat from your suit form upgrade. Generate a tech resource for each threat you removed this way. And then there is also, Secret Agent. That is, that one's a title. And then I should mention this one here. We have the Practice Plan. Response: after you discard a preparation card from your control, discard Practice Plan, return that card to your hand from your discard pile. So that one's very nice for getting EM shield, energy barrier, eye patch camera, or force field I'm sorry, it can't get those. It can get, sorry, I forgot. It only brings preparations back, right? After you discard a preparation card you control, discard Practice Plan, return that card to your hand from your discard pile. So EM shield is a preparation, so you could bring that back. Eye patch camera is one that you could bring back. And there was another one that one uses pretty frequently, And yes, this one, intelligence analysis. So this one is not a tech, so you would not use this with repurpose, but it's a zero cost preparation upgrade and a skill. It has this interrupt: after you reveal a treachery, discard intelligence analysis and remove one threat from your suit form upgrade. Cancel the effects of that treachery and discard it. So any of those preparations, then practice plan could bring back. And then, so let's go ahead and talk about how one, because notice, a lot of these cards do depend upon one discarding, using like your events too, as far as your attack events. So the concentrated fire and then also spray fire, which is 2 cost event. So we might as well mention this now. It has a cost of 3 and is an attack, has a hero action. Choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain, and each minion engaged with that player. This attack gains range. And again, so you can use this upgrade here. If he has any of that threat that is on this scheme, he can remove that, up to 3 of that threat. So here, look at the assault side up at top. When you attack, remove up to 3 threat from here. This attack deals 1 additional damage for each threat removed this way. So if we're constantly taking off that threat, we need ways to put that threat on. And we already saw one way is the event's concentrated fire. The thwart event. Covert surveillance can remove 2 threat from a scheme. If you're in stealth suit form, you can place that threat in your stealth suit form. But also Nick Fury has his own ability that we mentioned earlier, right? He has this response on the hero side. After Nick Fury makes a basic thwart, place 1 threat on your suit form upgrade. So that's a way to adding some, but it's only 1. And so for the most part, I found that my real key was Maria Hill. So let's take a look at this ally. Maria Hill, 3 cost, has 1 attack and 2 thwart, and each one with 1 consequential damage, has 3 health, is a S.H.I.E.L.D ally, and has this interrupt when Maria Hill thwarts. So she thwarts for 2. Place the removed threat on your suit form upgrade. So placing 2 threat is significant. So if you place 2 threat on the suit form upgrade from Maria Hill thwarting, and if you place 1 from Nick Fury thwarting, that's 3. So you can put, a few on there each round, and then you can start using that. And you're going to use it with Fury's flying car as well, right? So exhaust Fury's flying car, remove 1 threat from your suit form upgrade, ready Nick Fury. And like we said before, he gains the aerial trait until the end of the round. But the main thing we care about there in this deck anyway is being able to ready him. So that means that, this is another one that's taking it off, but this is actually kind of nice because you could actually thwart with Nick Fury, use Fury's flying car to ready him, and then you could always thwart again or attack. So Fury kind of pays for himself to use Fury's flying car. Right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the deck, right? So that's how we finish the game, is using Repurpose, and then he would typically then attack, because Repurpose lets you, ready Nick Fury. So if I'm finishing out the game, we have everything set up, we're going for that final push, and we attack with Nick Fury for just 2. Oh, I should probably let you see that, right? He has 2 thwart and 2 attack and 2 defense. We mentioned that earlier. So let's say you initially attack for 2 to try to finish out the game, and then you use Repurpose, and maybe you have energy barrier on there, or maybe EM shield, which costs 2. So now he readies, and because of Repurpose, he now gets +2 to his attack. So he can attack then for 4. Okay. And then he has so that makes a total of 6. And then he has his flying car, and he could attack again for 4 more. So that's a total of 10. But wait, he could attack for even more if he is using up some of his attack, on his permanent here, right, on his suit upgrade. He can take threat from here and go ahead and use that to make any of those attacks attack for more. So that's why his attacks ranged, in that final round when he would attack for around 20 points of damage altogether. From his basic attacks, he would do anywhere from 10 all the way up to a maximum of 19, right? So that one time when he did 19, actually he did that twice. Okay. He used force field generator for one of them. And then he also had one where he used, he had EM shield and energy barrier. So he had a couple of repurposes on hand. So he was able to use the repurposes multiple times. So that's what led to the big attacks. But there are also important elements to this. So you can't do your big attack at the end unless you control the board. So how did he control the board? Well, one of the ways was that he continued to make sure he could put thwart, is it called threat? Yeah, you can put threat on his suit form upgrade by continuing to both, thwart with himself or do so with Maria Hill. And the goal was to, once we got Maria Hill out on the board, Maria Hill was meant to stay on the board forever, and hence the reason why we have 2 copies of Med Team. And Med Team is a 3-cost support and has 3 medical counters. Exhaust Med Team and remove 1 medical counter from it. You can heal 2 damage from a friendly character. So that's how I was able to keep Maria Hill in the game the rest of the game when she was out there. But these are expensive, so you might wonder, how do you get those out there? Well, we mentioned this one before, Fury's Watch. Well, because we're constantly putting threat onto his suit form upgrade to then utilize, Fury's Watch, you can remove 2 threat from your suit form upgrade, generate, you can remove up to 2. So you can generate up to 2 resource icons, mental resource icons, to play cards. So that would help you to play Med Team. So would Helicarrier, and so would Team Building Exercise. So Team Building Exercise is, exhaust Team Building Exercise, play a card from your hand that shares a trait with your hero, reducing its resource cost by 1. So let's look at Nick Fury's trait. So Nick Fury is has a shield trait, soldier trait, and spy trait. And the one that we utilize in this case, or really throughout this whole deck, is the shield trait. So because Med Team is shield traded, we're able to use Team Building Exercise to reduce the cost of playing this by 1. So then it becomes a 2-cost card instead. And the same goes for almost every ally in this deck. So we have 9 allies in this deck. So I'm just going to quickly run through them. So notice Agent 13 is a shield and a spy, and has this response after Agent 13 attacks or thwarts. Choose a shield support, ready that support. So a lot of the times we would ready, which one is it? Helicarrier. And Helicarrier, right, lets you reduce the resource cost of the next card that player plays this phase by 1. So a lot of times that would allow us to play another card with Helicarrier, but sometimes it was Med Team, so I could heal somebody else. Then we had Black Widow, another key card. This is a card that I added relatively late, but ended up being highly valuable. And that is, so she's a 3-cost ally, has 1 attack and 2 thwart, only has 2 health, but notice does have shield. So I should mention this up front. All of these are shield allies other than Professor X. So let's just get that out of the way. So Professor X is just out there because, periodically we could use the help with confusing the villain. And so he has this force response after Professor X enters play. You can confuse the villain, and that's, that was the whole goal of using Professor X, was to confuse the villain. And plus he does have 3 thwart, so you can also remove 3 threat from a scheme. So there's Professor X. So the rest of them are all shield traded. Okay? So, but Black Widow is a particularly cool one, has this interrupt. When a card is revealed from the encounter deck, exhaust Black Widow and spend a mental resource, cancel the effects of that card and discard it, then reveal another card from the encounter deck. So when I first started using Black Widow in this deck, I actually ended up revealing the next card that I would reveal. The first few times was worse than the card that I canceled. So I started being more selective with that. But once I became more selective with it, I made sure that I was truly just, cards that were very difficult to handle. Those were the cards that I would cancel. And if I felt like I could handle them, otherwise I would just let the card come into play. Notice though, that this is when a card is revealed from the encounter deck. So the cool thing about this is you can cancel any really bad card with it and then reveal another card from the encounter deck, not just, what are they called? Treacheries, not just treacheries, right? So usually most cards that can cancel something can cancel treacheries. This can cancel any card. And in fact, we mentioned that a card in this deck already, Intelligence Analysis, right, has an interrupt. When you reveal a treachery, discard Intelligence Analysis and remove one threat from your suit form upgrade, cancel the effects of that treachery and discard it. Of course, this one has the advantage with treacheries because it just completely gets rid of it and you don't have to then draw another card from the encounter deck. Okay. Then we have Grant Ward, who is a 0-cost ally, but cannot defend. And then after you reveal a treachery, you may spend a mental resource. If you do not, you take damage equal to Grant Ward's ATK, and then remove Grant Ward from the game. So he has an attack of 2 and a thwart of 2. So you would take 2 damage and then remove him from the game. And then we have Melinda May, who is a S.H.I.E.L.D. ally. After Melinda May she has this response. After she uses a basic power, look at the top card of the encounter deck. You may discard that card. So that's really nice for checking to see what's going to happen during the next villain turn. And then we have Mockingbird, who is a 3-cost ally that enters play, has this response to stun an enemy. And then Nick Fury Sr., who is a 4-cost ally, 2 attack and 2 thwart, has 3 health, has this forced response. After Nick Fury Sr. enters play, choose one, remove 3 threat from a scheme, draw 2 cards, or give a S.H.I.E.L.D. character a tough status card. I think every single time I used the draw 2 cards in my case. Yeah, I don't think I used a single one of the other ones, but there's certainly value in the others if needed. And at the end of the round, if Nick Fury Sr. is still in play, discard him. So he works just like the original Nick Fury ally as far as that's concerned. And I already mentioned Professor X, and then we also have War Machine, who has a toughness card, so he's a good one to bring out to utilize that toughness. But he still has 3 health and can attack for 2 and thwart for 2. Okay. So with all of those S.H.I.E.L.D. allies, some S.H.I.E.L.D. supports like Med Team, another S.H.I.E.L.D. support that comes within his deck, which is Safe House, right? So it's a location and a S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a support that lets you, in alter ego form, heal 2 damage from Nick Fury or place 1 threat on the suit form upgrade. Well, with all of those in play, possibility of coming in play, we also have Sky Destroyer. And Sky Destroyer is a 3-cost support, has the shield and vehicle trait, has this response after you play a S.H.I.E.L.D. card, including this card, by the way, exhaust Sky Destroyer and deal 2 damage to an enemy. So in solo play, 2 damage can be significant. And so coming in and dealing 2 damage, but then repeatedly doing it every time a new ally came into play, or excuse me, is it come into play? Yes. After you play, you have to play the card. They can't just come into play. So after you play a S.H.I.E.L.D. card, any of those S.H.I.E.L.D. cards mentioned, then you can do 2 damage, and it's not an attack, so you can do that 2 damage and not worry about any consequences to it. Or you can get around guard. All right, so that's the gist of the deck. Okay, so, and that's pretty much the deck. So, sorry, I got interrupted there. So I don't remember the sentence I left off in the middle of. So I paused and now I'm back. So the last thing I want to talk about is the changes that were made to this deck. So you see the final deck. The initial deck that I had put together had only 7 allies in it and a couple of other things. So let me go ahead and show you that initial deck. All right, so this was the initial deck. So as I was playtesting, I discovered that this deck was lacking in some ways. And one of them was that I felt like it did need that one extra instance, or that one instance of being able to confuse the enemy. So that's why I brought in Professor X. And then I also ended up bringing in the green, the protection ally, Black Widow. And so I added those 2 allies to it. But I also, this original deck had 43 cards, so I added those 2 allies in, but I removed 4 cards so that we ended up with 41 at the end. So the 4 cards I removed, 2 of them were the Power in All of Us. They were certainly good cards and were being used, but I found them to be unnecessary. I didn't realize that just how good Fury's watch was going to be at generating resources. And so that it was relatively easy to set things up and start getting resources going. And so I didn't end up needing power in all of us, so I got rid of those. And then I also got rid of Gemma Simmons. So I kept Leo Fitz. So this was Leo Fitz is a shield support 3 cost, but you reduce the cost to play Leo Fitz by 2 if your identity has the shield trait, and Nick Fury has the shield trait on both his hero side and his alter ego side. So you can end up playing Leo Fitz for 1, and then his alter ego action is exhaust Leo Fitz, search your deck for a tech card and add it to your hand. And I figured, if I'm going to be regularly adding tech cards to my hand, then why don't I have Gemma Simmons out as well? But it turned out I didn't stay in alter ego side a lot. I didn't go to alter ego side a lot. So yes, it was valuable every time I did to utilize Leo Fitz, but I didn't have a real justification to continue to leave Gemma Simmons in. Now, she's not just, she can reduce the cost. She's the same way, by the way. She's a shield card and a persona. Normally a cost of 3, reduce the cost to play Gemma Simmons by 2 if your identity has the shield trait, and is a resource generator, right? Exhaust Gemma Simmons and generate a tech resource, mental resource for a tech card. So that's certainly valuable. But I just found that I didn't need it. And it would just end up being an extra support that prevented me from having, something else in my deck instead. So I removed Gemma Simmons. She just wasn't being used. Leo Fitz, I did find to still be valuable. And so that's 3 cards, right? So we got rid of 2 of the power in all of us, got rid of Gemma Simmons, and then also superpower training. So I love superpower training. I use it in a great deal of my decks, right? So, but I turned out, and you use it to try to, it's a player side scheme. And once you defeat it, you can search your deck and discard pile for an identity specific upgrade and put it into play. And there are a bunch of, there are quite a few identity specific upgrades, but I just ended up finding I didn't really need it. I was able to play these anytime I needed to, as soon as they came in. So I didn't really feel like I needed the superpower training. So that ended up being unnecessary. So I removed that as well. So that was 3 removals. And then, like I said, added back in Black Widow and Professor X. And so those were the changes, and I did find them to be highly effective, made the deck overall that little bit more efficient, made it a little bit more efficient, which is what I really needed in this deck. I felt like this deck needed that efficiency to perform well. And as you saw, it did. It was able to win undefeated against all of those villains. But also, like I said, I don't think this is for everybody. It's, you have to be willing to do a lot of, mental work and figuring things out to get used to playing him, to make him effective. And not a single victory felt easy. Even as I got better with him, I still felt like I had to do the mental work, but it was, for me, a great puzzle. So I enjoyed this very much. And I hope you do too, if you decide to play it. And if you enjoyed videos like this, please like and subscribe. I'll be sure to link this deck. Oh, and please make comments. I enjoy having conversations with people in the chat. in the comments. And so, the deck will also be linked in the description, so you can see it there. Not this deck, but the actual original deck. The original deck that I was showing here, Tinker with Tech, Soldier Spy. All right, have a good one, everybody. Catch you later.